We are back for season 3, and in this first episode, I sit down with Pat Sperry for a deep and heart-opening conversation all about men's work, vulnerability, and the journey of self-discovery. Pat shares his personal evolution from a competitive athlete to a dedicated yogi, opening up about the power of emotional intelligence in relationships, the importance of being seen, and how pain and pleasure shape personal growth. We also dive into love, identity, and the challenges of self-acceptance, plus what it really means to take responsibility for our own emotions and relationships. If you're new here, I'm Jen, a mom, a therapist, and your guide inside of How We Get Thru. Here we don't just ask the deep questions, we live them. We make space for the raw, the real, the things you've been afraid to say out loud. And this episode is brought to you by the How We Get Thru community, where the real transformation happens. Live events, daily meditations, journal prompts, and deep connections with people who actually get it. So hit that subscribe button and let's go there together. And if you're ready to fully step in, join the How We Get Thru community today. The link's in the description. Welcome back to How We Get Thru, where we heal, we expand, and we get through together. Welcome back to the How We Get Thru podcast. This is our first show of 2025, and we have Pat Sperry on the show. Welcome, Pat.
Hey, Jen. Thanks for having me. Really happy to be here.
Me too. I'm so excited. We got to chatting a little bit before we recorded, and I just feel we are exactly where we need to be, and our conversation is going to be really, really amazing. So thank you so much for connecting. And as we were talking, I didn't tell you this part, but I was like, what do you want to chat about? And you're like, men's work. And all last year, I feel like I went through my own healing. I mean, I'm still doing that, but I feel like the feminine and the collective was like really going through it. And I remember thinking, what about the men? And for season 3, I wanted to talk more about the men and where they're at and how we can kind of help them. And when I say men and female, or male and female, it's more of like the energy, right? The energy that we kind of are more dominant with. So Pat, I'm so excited. Can you tell us a little bit about your work and what you do?
Jen, thank you. And I too feel aligned and excited to explore the poles of masculinity and femininity, whether we're talking about gender or energetics. It's really interesting, and it feels like there's some magnetism towards this topic, and a lot of men are seeking other men to do inner work with. And I'm super curious about some of the motifs and themes as issues that you've seen showing up for women across your body of work. So it's going to be great. We're going to learn something for sure today. And hopefully that whoever receives this piece is finding some insight, healing space within themselves.
Yes.
So my story, long story short, is that I'm very privileged. I came from uh, a really bubble-like community, suburb outside of Chicago, very affluent, not a lot of worries, plenty provided, maybe a bit spoiled as a kid, and working on my mother complex, and I was coddled so much and nurtured so thoroughly. A really involved father who was super supportive, but also really competitive, that pushed me to be the best and insisted that I was. And I was really talented as a youth athlete. I played on the U.S. national team as a young soccer player and went on scholarship to the University of Michigan to play Division I soccer. I studied filmmaking, and I had like a parallel life as a singer-songwriter ever since I was a young kid. I loved music, so I eventually decided to transition from playing soccer to give it my all to make it in Hollywood. I moved to LA in pursuit of grandiosity and fame and success, and I loved the creative process. So I worked as a songwriter for years, as David Beckham's body double for a while, which was pretty
Fun.
neat. And then I found yoga unexpectedly. I was introduced to yoga practice through a DVD.
A
Uh-uh.
DVD.
My best
Oh,
buddy. And,
remember
at that
those?
time, there was a lot of, like, pot smoking and experience and chasing, and that was how I was connecting to more expansiveness and, into maybe, like, the spiritual realm, but when I took my first shavasana, I found space that resonated as that which I'd always wanted. I was in touch with me in a deeper way, and, I never looked back. So that was 16 years ago, and I
Wow.
think 2 weeks after my first yoga practice, I did a 200-hour teacher training, and then I was all in. So, it's been a beautiful journey since then. I traveled the world for 4 years with a backpack through India and Nepal and China, seeking masters on this path of self-discovery, only to come home and, really ground myself into work and purpose, which is kind of where I'm at now.
Mm. You have such a beautiful, soft, flowy, like, demeanor about you, and also in your story, an insane amount of determination
Mm.
and balls to the wall.
For sure. Yeah, well, the sweetness is, sometimes a mask because right beneath the surface is a lot of intensity,
Yeah.
and, I'm grateful to have both of those pieces active, and I think the pendulum probably swung at one point. I became more of a soft male to kind of come down from this hyper competitive, kind of macho man who was like, going to war every day to win on, the training ground or whatnot as an athlete, and that just was not sustainable, and I was craving, a more livable kind of psychology or persona, so this path of meditation and contemplation and kind of starting to address, like, what had been repressed and, um, too hard to hold as a young man is it's been a big part of my maturation, this ability to unconditionally feel my inner world, which for me is the path of the warrior. That's the road which is hard to walk, is to put down numbing, put down avoiding, and start to allow yourself to sit in the restlessness of your emotional world.
Yeah. And was that your experience? Like, you felt you were more avoidant or kind of numbing to your internal world? Or maybe it was a avoidance in the winning, like, if I am the best, then I will feel the best?
Right. It was very conditional, and I probably was on a roller coaster for most of my early life of seeking achievement, but never being fulfilled by it. There was always the next mountain to climb. I think part of my perfectionist predicament is that it's never enough. And we can say, oh, this is Pat now in his, mature incarnation, but all of these things are still playing out gradually, just peeling back one layer at a time. So I think learning patience a bit has been a big part of the medicine that I've needed
Mhm.
to find my way through life in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that because I do think I mean, I'm not patient. I'm working on that. But there are these pieces of ourselves that we kind of, like, we gave the driver's seat to for a long time. And when we pull that back and we allow something else to come forward, we're like, "Whoa, that was really out of control," or "That wasn't great," or whatever. But at the same time, this especially for you, the drive and the will is also a really beautiful part and is also a very important part of your story. And when we can kind of, like, learn to hold all these pieces of ourselves, we can start to peel away the shame. I'm talking for myself now, like, peel away the shame of, like, I'm really proud of my 20-year-old self that had to do that and went for that. I'm getting emotional right now.
I'm happy,
Um,
happy that it's coming through for you.
yeah, like, there's, you know, um, so it's just like this really sweet thing when you can have appreciation and love for pieces that you thought weren't or aren't good anymore.
What piece of you is coming through that tier which you're recognizing as worthy? Is it one thing? Is it Is it your 20-year-old self, or is it just the fullness of
I think what comes up and I talk about a lot, is, like, my anger, and it comes out in my parenting,
Mm,
and so, I don't know if you're in astrology also, because 'cause I'm all fire.
yeah,
So, I, again, like, that fire in me and the 20-year-old self, like, I don't know, it's just kind of bringing all the pieces together of how do I not, like, lose that fire part of myself, but then how does it not burn the people around me? Um And there's a lot of, like, personal things that are happening in my relationship that are leaking out on my kids right now, and so really trying to have that and hold boundaries around that is difficult, but again, it's like, how do I not shame that part of myself? I don't love the behavior, but
sure,
there's something for me, like, I'm not being seen in this relationship, and that's what's leaking out, and so there's something honorable about the anger.
right? It definitely has a lot of information, and just wanna appreciate your willingness to be open and vulnerable with me. We're just meeting, and it's a gift to receive that level of authenticity. What my partner has made clear to me, and she speaks on behalf of women, is that women just want to be seen. There's a beautiful part in the epic story of India called the Ramayana, and if I just turn my camera a little bit, you can see Hanuman here, the monkey god sitting up on the dresser, and it's a big part of that story. But as Sita and Rama are getting married, and these are like the masculine and feminine principles of the universe personified by these great characters, King Janaka tells Rama, like, his one piece of advice as he goes into marriage is, "Look at her, never see enough." And he's inviting her to keep seeing her, and to keep seeing her because there's so many layers of us, and it's a moving target. Who you are today is different than who you were yesterday and who you'll be tomorrow. So I think the masculine gift is presence, whether we're talking about gender or energetics. The person or anybody uh, who's in front of a friend, a partner that can give their full attention and to listen and to see and to create space for someone to feel seen. At Flourish, the company that I founded, we say, be seen, be loved, belong. So it's valid. And that's a big part of the men's work that we do is skill building in relationship. So how to listen, how to give feedback, how to receive feedback, how to communicate. And it's really important that we take
Yeah.
time to learn these skills, which seem like they should be innate, but we didn't get it. We didn't
We
have the
didn't get it.
male mentors that we deserved because of the historical predicament that we're in. We can talk more about that if you want at some point.
Yeah, and I think, also from the experience that I've had, um, I'm currently going through a divorce, which is the first time I'm
Uh-huh.
saying it live on the
Thank you
podcast, but,
for
um, gosh, so emotional today. I'm okay. Um, but I think on the flip side, where I wanna take responsibility for the female is, like, I chose a man that wasn't very emotional available, to be married to and to be in a relationship with, and it wasn't until I really met my own self there in the vulnerability and allowed myself to be vulnerable with other people. I mean, I'm a therapist by trade, you can be vulnerable with me all day. That's my job. Um, but to really allow myself to be vulnerable to other people and within my relationship was my work. And then seeing if the masculine or if he could meet me there was was where we were at. So I think for a lot of women, we're like, yes, we want to be seen, we want all these things. And I think the question is, are you allowing yourself to be seen? Are you seeing yourself to be open to that? Because that is true intimacy. That is vulnerability.
Well said. There's a lot there. And
Yeah.
I imagine that we recreate the same situations until we do the work within ourselves to integrate the parts of us which are in the shadow, which once you shine some light on, start to shift. So that part of you that's willing to take responsibility for creating this person in your life to show you parts of yourself that wanted attention, to be updated, to be loved, was a gift. We do this in relationship, and if we're not taking responsibility for our own feelings, then it's really challenging to work it out with somebody like you're making me feel this way. And I would rather be in a relationship where it was like what you did triggered this thing within me, which I'm feeling, and ultimately thank you because now I get a chance to go back and do this work. I didn't even know that that anger was still there. I've been doing yoga for 16 years. My anger is cleared, and then in a flash, there's rage. I thought I dealt with that. I thought I already forgave my father, but then it comes back, and we have to be willing to continue to hold that inner child and that pain. And that is courage. And that is what vulnerability is. It's the path of the spiritual warrior, that one who's willing to sit within themselves and feel,
Yeah.
and not bypass by being the persona of a psychologist or
Right.
staying high on meditation all day and never coming down to feel your humanity.
Which I love that. I think that's a very good point because people, especially in the spiritual world, or if you're kind of new, can get a little bit really high on that and like, "Oh, I just wanna be in the ethers." Like, "I don't
Right.
wanna be in my body. I don't wanna
Ah,
feel. I don't wanna like, this place is
sure.
shit." Yeah. But I do think that's why we chose to be a human was to actually experience pain, pleasure. I mean, all the things, and we, I think, forget that sometimes. Um, I always joke, like, we decided to come into the meat suit, right? We're like, "Okay, it'd be cool, like, let's go to Earth. Yeah, let's
Sure.
experience that." And then the whole fucking time we're, like, trying to go back to our soul, like, "Wait, wait, 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 we forgot. What was it like up there? What are we trying to aspire to? Where are we trying to go?" So it's just this kind of, it can be this, like, push and pull, and what I think we're supposed to do is that integration, right? And that's tricky.
It's totally tricky, and it's mastery. That's like the mastery of the human experiences, as the Christ said, to be in the world, but not of the world. So if you unpack that, it's like, how can you straddle your life when you have one foot fully on the ground, like the dancing Shiva, and then the other foot is off into the cosmic expanse of consciousness. So the path that I think is true if we're on this journey of self-realization is that we're born into a field of oneness. There's an undifferentiated consciousness. Everything is blended. We don't have a sense of I yet as far as like an ego self. And then we get conditioned and we come down into the personality, and then there's separation. There's me, Pat, as the individual who is the conglomeration of all of my experiences and what I've been conditioned to believe that I am as a person. And then the spiritual work is to go back into this space of oneness and then to come down as the person and to play full out, but to not forget who you really are, which is that deeper field of consciousness, which is unaffected by change, essentially. I mean, and we forget if you have a sense of who you are through meditation or spiritual practice and you touch that space which is still and quiet and peace. Okay, then you go off the mat into the world, and immediately all of your neuroses are back, and you're caught up, and you're pissed off, and you're addicted, and all of these things. So I put like statues all around me of God, and it's different forms, and I'm reading and practicing, but I'm always forgetting who I am. And the goal is to remember, to come back to the moment, and to dance between your forgetfulness and those moments of grace when you're connected.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what keeps it fun. That's what
That's
keeps
what
it
keeps it
interesting.
fun.
Because if you think about it, we would be so fucking bored if we mastered any one of those or mastered the in between, you know? And so it's the again, yeah, it's the pain and the pleasure that we continue to hold. That's what makes life. Um, and it can be pleasurable and it can be painful and it can be both at the same time.
I think it's many things at the same time. If you ask me if I'm sad in this moment, if I feel into that, there's part of me that's sad for sure. And if you ask me if I'm ecstatically joyful, that's there too. So the ability to hold more than one thing at the same time, I think, is a really evolved way of being human because we're not just one thing. I'm not just depressed. I can recognize that there's part of me that is, and I can recognize that there's another part that's, on the opposite side of that spectrum, right? The dialectic, both sides of the coin. And that's really helpful in therapy. I have a great talk therapist for the last 5 or 6 years, and
Yay.
she's always reminding me, like, yes, you are, your anger, for example, Jen, does, create some dysfunction perhaps in the way that it manifests, but that energy when it's expressed and it's generative and positive is like the reason people love you because you have passion and you have the ability to cut through with your fierceness and that's you would never wanna lose that part of you,
Yeah.
but they come together, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. One side needs a little work,
Sure.
which it always is. It's working.
Yeah.
Um, Pat, I'm so curious of why, because you talked a little bit about your story, but I think it takes a special man to enter into vulnerability and enter into certain like the skills that you were talking about to be in a really good relationship with self and with someone else. But I'm curious of what was the driving force for you to hold that mirror up and start learning those skills?
It's a really nice question, and I think life, is has always led me in from the day you're born, you're set into motion, and you meet, like any hero, mentors and tricksters and different people along the way that bring gifts. Um, Somehow my, gift of showing up. And you said there's a part of me that knows discipline and dedication. And I experienced as a young man how, as I trained, fervorishly as an athlete, I succeeded. I got a lot of opportunities. I enjoyed the fruits of that labor. And when I got into yoga, it was the same thing. Like, I always have followed my heart. If it feels like a yes, I make irrational decisions sometimes, like to not go into professional soccer, to pursue the dream of music in Hollywood. A lot of people were upset and they couldn't understand why I wouldn't follow this thing, which for most people would be the realization of a dream. But, my heart pulled me hard. And there's also other things working, like, my eternal boy complex, which is always imagining, the possibilities of what could be more, what's out there. So I have to work with that too. It keeps me, sometimes in, like, the realm of fantasy and imagining what's possible rather than going into life, into what actually is, and that's what I'm doing currently. I'm going into my relationship. I'm renouncing the possibility of other women and other experiences and that level of freedom for one thing, which is really grounded and comes with 3 stepchildren and
Yeah.
is a big commitment, and, to go into that fully it brings up a lot within me, but it's what I need to work through to become the man that I hold as a possibility. So, yeah, it's, um it's following the heart into the unknown and continuing to show up. So as I continued to show up in my early days in yoga, I attracted amazing teachers. And because I was so devoted and they saw my earnestness and sincerity, they really took me under their wing and they became, great mentors. So I attracted mentors by my efforts, and I think that was a huge part of what allowed me to take it as far as I've taken it.
And were those mostly men mentors?
There was both, but when I was 21 starting off practicing yoga in Hollywood, I was falling in love with my female yoga teachers. I remember, like, the first 3 teachers, I just was so distracted in class. I wasn't doing anything but,
Yeah.
uh, flirting the whole time, and I would, like, paint fruit with poetry and bring it to my teachers as, like, a gift, as I was
Yeah.
hoping we would be dating by the end of the month or whatever. So when I found my first male yoga teacher, something shifted where I was starting to pay attention in a different way. I saw, like, a masculine anatomy and somebody who had the same limitations and mobility in certain aspects of, their physical existence, which was relatable. So for me, it was helpful to have male teachers because I was such a flirt that there
Yeah.
was no yoga
I
happening, just
love
like the
that.
the hope of a tantric yogic experience.
Right. Well, I'm curious of, how you would kind of, relate that to your experience with mom, like, with your mom, like, in having a female teacher, not obviously the sexual part, but this nurturing piece, like, wanting to be in their inner world, wanting to be, like, enveloped by them, bringing them these, like, gifts, bringing these offerings, like, "Just envelop me, just, like, see." I don't know if it's "see me," I don't, but something around, like, the closeness around that, and then the opposite of the male of, like, this admiration and "Oh, this is what I could be," or "This is what I want to be," kind of growing into something. I'm just curious if there's any similarities to your parents in that in any way.
Yeah. Jen, what comes up for me is that I just had masculine coaches growing up,
Mm.
and their tough love approach. I remember, like, my main coach as a youth soccer player, and you have to remember I was high achieving. I was like, the big star. He never gave me compliments unless I really did something that was, outstanding. But that wasn't, like, a bad thing for me because the validation, when it came, it just meant so much because he wasn't giving it out, you know, freely.
Really?
And the yoga teachers that I attracted were pretty hard, and I
Really?
liked it, and
Mm.
their intensity was familiar, and again, it kind of invited me to practice beyond myself, to, you know, do what I couldn't do on my own. So I met them at their level of intensity and passion, and that inspired me to go beyond myself. So it just kind of worked, and it was a continuum of what I've had uh,
Mm.
as an athlete.
Mhm. But it sounds like the vibration or the frequency that you've had your whole life is the intensity of that, almost in, would you say, like, in competition with yourself in some ways and wanting someone to just kind of, be at that level with you?
Yeah, I was a little bit of a tyrant, as a young man when I would play sports. I was so hard on everybody, my teammates, the world, because I had such a high standard and expectation, this kind of perfectionist predicament that I've lived with. And it was tinged with meanness. And, I've made calls over the last 15 years to people that I was hard on to say I'm really sorry for, the way that I showed up in those years. I did the best that I could, but I was mean at times. So those parts of me needed to come down. And I have to say also, like, if I really look at it, I had some great female mentors in yoga. The studio owner of the first shala that I discovered, my first teacher training, she was an amazing woman. And this other lady named Jean Korn, who was so sweet and so watery, and that was also, like, coming in contact with a different type of femininity, which was deep and embodied and really visceral and juicy. And that was like, a version of a woman that I had never seen before, and she was expressing through her connection with spirit and yoga, and it was a lot. And in that community as well, being exposed to women who were really connected to themselves and their sensuality, and they had a different level of confidence, and
Mhm. What a beautiful sight.
it was a lot. It was growing up fast, kind of diving into the deep end of the conscious community in Los Angeles. There's a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of, everything there, and I was exposed to it, and, it was a beautiful part of my life, kind of like a spring of awakening and exploring. And I was definitely in touch with my feminine side through that. I was wearing, tights to yoga class and, like, just really m connected to my creativity. Yoga opened my creative channel, and that's what kept me going with yoga because I was songwriting, and as soon as I started to practice, I started to write prolifically, and I was thinking, "Well, I better keep practicing because this is very fruitful."
Yeah.
So kind of they reinforced each other in a really beautiful way.
Mhm. What does your creativity look like now?
I am as I ground more into life, see, I studied the archetypes. It's the foundation of the men's work that I teach. And the four male archetypes are called the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. And they have their expression in fullness, and also they have a bipolar shadow where the magician, uses his knowledge for good, and in the shadow can be manipulative or innocent, feigning innocence. So we just start to understand these mechanisms that work within our psyche. We all have these parts. But this eternal boy, this puer eternus, is something that I've really been studying a lot these days. And in reflection of that and the way that it plays out, um, I need to go back and ask you what we were talking about.
How your creativity shows up for
Right.
you.
When when this part of us, which is like the eternal boy that has so much imagination, it's the part of us when we're a kid that just feels like anything is possible, and we live in the potential of what our human life might be. And when we really come down and commit to one thing, whether it's a job or a relationship or anything like that, the danger is we become disillusioned. We're cynical, and our creativity, feels smashed because all of a sudden all of those possibilities have shrunk down into just one thing. So I am seeking to ground into my life in the most committed way that I ever have, and still keep alive that part of me which is available to dream and to creative projects. So for me, the creativity is flowing into my business over the last 4 years with Flourish, creating curriculum, creating experiences. Flourish started off as these really incredible weekend local events where you would come and there would be a program curated over 2 days with maybe 16 different teachers across all of these awesome well being modalities and practices, from laughter to walking meditation to ecstatic dance and breath work and crafting and art therapy and relationship building workshops. And it's just like this design to bring people through experiences which connect to themselves and to others with live music and chefs and production. And that's been really fun. And co creating with my partner, Catalina, has been really amazing as well because she has so many gifts that she brings to bear that kind of fill in the gaps for me, and that's been really creative and abundant.
Yeah. And people need the connection more than ever. So I love that in
We
person.
say we make things that we need more than anyone, and that way we know that everybody will
Yeah.
benefit.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so I kind of want to talk about relationships because I feel like you love love. Maybe not, but like you wanted to fall in love. I don't know if that's true.
I've always loved love. You you
Yes.
you can see there's, like, a
Okay.
little bit of this Don Juan syndrome in me, which has always been chasing beauty.
Yes. Which again, I don't know if you know astrology, but you might want to look up where your Venus sign is
Uh-huh.
because for me, I'm very similar. It's like I love like I see the beauty in things and I love love and I love romance And I think for a woman, it's like, oh my gosh, don't do that. You're going to be blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like, no, like it is like my North Star and it always will be. And it's a big part of me. And so I guess the question is like, was that part of your drive to be a better man, to have better love, or to have a better
Mm.
relationship?
Yeah, I think a catalyst for my greatest growth was the crumbling of a past relationship that at the onset was deeply passionate and a sense of overwhelming romantic love. And it didn't work in the end because of, if I'm taking responsibility for myself, just a level of immaturity and not being ready to put down the adventurous side of me, which couldn't quite ground into forever with somebody. And it was really hard to leave this woman. And I did. We, at that point, were living in Australia. And when I left her, it was the beginning of this 4-year journey around the world where I was just seeking experience and um, not wanting to really be so deeply intimate with anyone, but to experience many things. And I think I needed that at that phase of my life, and I don't need that anymore. So I kind of worked through, and maybe part of my fantasy of what I wanted to experience in this life. But eventually, I think it comes down to your ability to love yourself in an authentic way and to be intimate with yourself and to connect with the parts of you which are scary that need to be held. And if you can do that, then it's like you can only love somebody else as much as you love yourself. But it's a practice to learn to love yourself, and it's hard because there's a lot of self-loathing. I mean, I had and still have self-hatred. You know, I hate myself at times for, if you look at it from a different perspective, you could definitely appreciate and love and value and see how your whole life story was necessary to bring you to who you are today, and where you're going is also, going to be filled with challenges. Can you love yourself along the way? Can you learn to be a little bit gentler and kinder and just soft around the edges? Otherwise, it's too hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was my journey these last 2 years is like really, really building a foundation for that and not just saying it, but like, what does that actually mean? And today I was like, looking at my body before I got in the shower and I was like picking it apart and I was like, oh, here's an opportunity to love yourself, girl. Like, this is it. Like, and so again, I think it's those moments where, this is that tension of holding all of it is here's another opportunity to keep building onto your foundation because it's never always there. You know what I mean? It's kind of this, you're always just trying to catch it and rebuild it. Like, um, so it becomes bigger, it becomes easier, quote unquote, but it's it's not ending.
That's correct. It's like in yoga, we never achieve the perfect pose because the pose is always shifting and our bodies are changing. And one day we're strong, and depending on what we ate the night before, maybe we're cramped up and we'll be injured, and age and everything is changing. And that's what the Buddha said was his core teaching, is that change is the only constant. And if we cling to anything, there'll be suffering because nothing can stay the same. So, you know, our bodies are changing. As I look in the mirror, everybody wants to compliment how luscious my hair is, and then all I can see is that, well, it used to kind of go straight across, and now it's starting to go back in the corners, and, you know, we are really hard on ourselves.
I mean, you do really have nice hair.
Ah, it's nice. I'm gonna probably cut it when I get married because
Okay,
my
tell me about that. Like, how short? What are you thinking?
Well, I just got engaged about a
Yeah.
week ago, so that's a
Mm,
big deal,
congrats. Yeah.
and, my partner is Mexican, her family is very traditional. When we first met, I had a super long beard. I wear this costume of the yogi very well, to present this image of the spiritual guy. Who am I when I look like everybody else? Nothing changes within me, but still I'm attached to this identity a little bit. I'm interested, a little bit nervous, and kind of also excited to go back to short-haired Pat.
Yeah.
But the first question the family's asking, like, "You're gonna cut your hair for the wedding?" I'm like, "Come on, it's been 10 minutes
Like,
since we got engaged."
take it easy. Take it
I said
easy.
yes, and I will do it with one caveat.
What?
So Flourish has made 2 feature-length documentaries, they're really special. We went to
Wow.
India for 2 weeks, and we tracked 4 people through their journey of transformation and growth, interviewing them all along the way. It's really good drama, and people open and fall apart and realize kind of, where they need to go in their lives, and there's this awesome journey that is really intimate. And we did the same thing in Peru this year, and it's even better. So I said, if Netflix insists that I keep, the spiritual costume with the long hair as we seek to pitch this project, I ain't cutting it.
That's true. Yes.
If that's a deal breaker, then I'm staying in this character. But if not, then we'll see.
Mhm. Oh, I'm excited for you. That's great. And long hair or short hair, it doesn't matter. And
Thank
you
you.
know that.
Thank you. I'm worthy of love and acceptance no matter my hairstyle.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
It is very beautiful though. Like, do you have a curl?
One.
Like, you must take care of it.
I've learned over the last 8 or 9 years how to
Curly.
condition and comb, but the curls are just part of the gift.
They're
Thank you,
just
mom. Uh-huh.
they're just the gift.
Yeah, women and bald men really love my hair. It's amazing. People see what they want to see.
Yeah, because yes, they want it the most. I would want hair like that.
You have great hair. You
Not
look
like that?
not like that.
No.
When
That
I
is
went
a
to
gift.
Tony Robbins for 6 days last year at Date with Destiny, I got 1,000 compliments, and I was suspicious because everybody was complimenting my hair, and I was really interested on what people might say to me if that wasn't, the calling card and the first thing that they
Yeah.
saw. I'm
Mm,
interested in that.
like to not hide behind your hair.
My grandma said, God rest her soul, before she passed, she whispered to me, she goes, "You're hiding behind all that hair." And I'm like,
Oh,
"Grandma, you're right, but, I
yeah.
like it." And I think liking it is also valid.
Yeah. Yes, yes. All things are true. And you're 38, right?
Correct.
So I think you're stepping into soon a new decade. And you're getting married. There's so many changes for you.
Big changes.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the commitment part and the boy?
Mm.
Um, because I'm wondering if it's part of the male. So I obviously am not even like divorced yet. Um, but I'm on TikTok a lot, and I just feel like there's a lot of loneliness for women and men in trying to find a partner. And I think with dating apps, there's the issues of commitment because there's so many people that you can match with.
It's the perfect technology for the non-committal person who just wants to play in the field of possibilities and, once you get to know somebody over time, you get to see their humanness and their frailty and fault. And if you're looking for the perfect person, if you're looking for one woman to fulfill the role of the divine mother, which is really what we want, is to merge in this field of love, which is pervading the universe, and it's in nature and it's in music. And to put that task to one person to fulfill is setting yourself up for disappointment and, inevitably an inability to accept the imperfect parts of people, which are always there. No personality is perfect.
Right.
So
Exactly.
for me, what a relationship, and the reason from the start, which is why I was so compelled towards Catalina, is that I had a lot of resistance to opening up. I had been dating and playing for a while since my previous relationship, but immediately I was seeing parts of myself which I wasn't aware of. She was reflecting to me, and I'm so intent on growth and evolution, and we were doing work together, like deep work, and it was way more intense than any downward facing dog that you can do.
Seriously. Yeah.
Relationship is the fiercest path of yoga, and if you use it as a mirror and you're able to be vulnerable and to keep going, because once it starts getting uncomfortable, we're not trained at sitting with discomfort. Yoga's a really good practice for that because it's painful to do these poses, and especially if you're staying in the poses for long periods of time, which is the style of yoga that I teach called Iyengar yoga. And you get to practice on the mat, basically being patient and compassionate with extreme physical discomfort. Hopefully that translates to your ability to be uncomfortable in front of the eyes of your woman, who at that moment is Kali and is cutting the heads of all of your egos off, forcing you down the road towards becoming a grown up. And you're kicking and screaming because it hurts.
Yeah.
So we started off and there was a lot of growth. It was confronting, it was challenging, old patterns showing up, playing out, sitting down, having these conversations, crying, and coming back, and not running away. So there was just always more. I was like, okay, this is interesting. I'm getting a lot out of this, and it continues to be interesting. And we really practice in our relationship because we're relationship coaches. We hold these events for people that are completely intimate, 2 weeks going through 5 cities in India, undergoing spiritual practice, cultural exchange, immersion, chaos, like, people fall apart. People need leaders who are capable of holding themselves. Me and Kat have to do our own work as a couple in these containers where we have 25 people who are all going through it. So we sit together and we work it out. And crossing through this portal into engagement, like, I went up to Kat yesterday and I felt scared. I'm afraid that these crazy fears that you would never say to somebody because there's such a weakness of like, what if I don't like being a father? It's a pretty permanent thing. What if, I get angry at your children and, want to kick them out of the house? Like, because sometimes there's conflict, between us, and the way that I relate doesn't match necessarily with a 15-year-old who's angry, and I'm this guy who's not her father,
Yeah.
and, I'm a Libran rising, so I seek balance and peace, and I want reconciliation, and I don't get it, so I'm being given a lot to work with, and the only way to stay open is by not closing, and that is fucking painful.
Yeah.
But on the other side of feeling that pain is a lot of relief. Like, I woke up today after going through a lot of different emotional experiences yesterday, and I feel renewed. It's amazing.
And so when you talk about your fears in being engaged and ultimately getting married, does it feel like it's the commitment, or does it feel like ego is pulling a little bit? Like, what if you can't do it? What is there for you? And because I think it's very I feel like a lot of men, I mean everyone's going to be different, but I feel like men might have a similar experience of like, well, I'm supposed to be engaged and be married and claim this woman and do these things,
Right.
but what if I can't do it? Or what if I can't be the provider? Or what if I can't be the protector? Or what if I can't be the dad?
Yes, and before, like, reinforcing all of those which are real, the remedy for that is be here now. Because right now, everything is okay, and right now, there's so much to be grateful for, and if you appreciate the good appreciates, and all of those perspectives are what's needed for anybody who is really tripping into the future and stumbling on all of the possible outcomes which aren't ideal. We don't know what it's gonna feel like when this child comes out of the womb and is in my arms. And my partner says, "You're scared." because of how much you're going to love.
Oh,
And it's definitely true in part. Like who I am, my identity, my life up until this point has been pretty selfish. Like I've just done what I've wanted. I've lived this incredible adventure from being a great athlete to chasing my dreams of fame and fortune in Hollywood and making amazing music. If you type in Pat Sperry on YouTube, you can see my music videos from
yay.
10 years ago. I'm Your Child, and it was great. My producers wrote all of the music for One Direction, and they're amazing
Awesome.
collaborators and whatnot. But, it's been this pursuit of the realization of my deepest desires and dreams. I climbed mountains in the Himalayas. I lived in Taoist monasteries in China training kung fu. I've had so much experience. I can keep chasing that for the rest of my life, and it would be an interesting life, but I would never know, I think, the depth of love and vulnerability that I will, and and many, many know, many who are listening to this have children, and to have your heart outside of yourself running around and you can't protect them all the time, and, it's
Pat, let me
deeply
fucking tell you.
vulnerable. It's
Let me
deeply
fucking tell you right now, okay? You said you want to keep growing. You said you love self-development. You're going balls to the wall. Your children and even your stepchildren will be the biggest mirrors of your life,
no doubt.
and it will wreck you and it will rebuild you.
Mm.
But it is the thing that you are ready for in this next chapter. And that's all it is this next chapter. And then this adventure and these other things, that still is there. It's whatever you want it to be.
It's the fear of losing. I think a lot of men would relate to the idea of the fear of losing your freedom,
Yeah.
and
Which,
that's just a fear, though. Like, all of the things that I want in my life are still possibilities. It's
yeah,
just there's more love, there's more responsibility. So also grounding and taking responsibility not just for your life, but for the lives of others. And God, I feel like God has said to me, like, your ego and your self-importance is so strong that it's not one person that you have to learn to prioritize over yourself. It's four, and that's my life now. And really showing up to nurture these young women's life. We have an 8, a 13, and a 15-year-old girl in the
fuck.
house.
Yeah.
And, they need my care at times. I'm cooking for them, I'm cleaning up after them, I'm supporting them emotionally when they need it. I'm there. I'm there for my partner. I seek to be a present partner and father and friend. And then I have my own passions and purpose in life, which is to create these life-changing experiences and build community for folks who are seeking heart-centered folks to evolve with. And my creative projects with this docu-series and the men's work, which is expanding. Like, do I lose that? Does that lose momentum when I bring in life to steward a child and to be awoke every night, by a
Yeah.
crying baby? I think it's probably more. It's more reason to fulfill your life's purpose, but it's the unknown.
Yes. And I also think like when you have a newborn baby, that becomes your priority because you want it to be versus like, oh, now I have to do that because, and then you start to get your more bandwidth again and be like, okay, I'm ready to go back and do this creative thing. And I think, especially as you support your partner in that, she's actually being taken out physically, emotionally, mentally more. And what is that what is that doing to her and how to support her in that and all of these things. And it becomes a balance and it doesn't become like all or nothing. It just becomes this is a little more forefronted and then this switches back. And again, it's that balance. It's that switch of life. And you're at this place because you're ready and you actually want it. And it's terrifying. And that is the juicy. That's it. That's why you're here. That's why you're living. That's why you're breathing. That's why you're wanting to experience this. And it is forever life changing in the best way. But you fucking climbed all the mountains
Let's
already.
go.
Do you know what I mean?
Those mountains are easy.
Exactly. Exactly.
So this
And
is the next challenge, and it was like that when I came back from 4 years of traveling. Like, I got to the point where that was no longer at a time, it was really stressful and challenging and exciting, but the next frontier, the next challenge for me was grounding
Yeah.
into career, into family, and this is the next frontier of adventure for me,
Yeah.
and I
And there's
am up
no
for
perfecting this one,
it. We're gonna
unfortunately.
find out our human imperfection pretty
Yes,
fast, babe.
buckle up, Pat. Call me when you need
Well,
me.
I see the signs on the wall, and it's already been, like that through the in vitro process and getting onto fertility medication and going to the doctor's office and going through this process has been really stressful for Kat.
Yeah.
Um, her body, her hormones, the experience is not easy at all. So again, to learn to dance in the rhythms of life and show up for what's needed in family and understand that what gets pushed to the back burner will come forward eventually.
Yeah.
And I guess that requires some fluidity and this rigid sense of structure, which is a masculine quality, has to give way to the dance of
Yeah.
what's needed in the moment.
And I think a little less ego in that, in the I am, and more of like the we are,
Mm,
we are in this stage. We are
mm-hmm.
trying to have a baby. We are in transitioning with our family. We are learning how we relate to one another. We are learning how to communicate with one another. And I think when, there's a point where we need the ego and the I am, especially for a man and a woman, but also for a man, the power is in the we are. It's the ability to hold a family. Oh, we are. And it's a shift in that. And for a man to do that, that's powerful. Women are born in that. And so for a man to do that, that's protection. That's being held. That's being seen. You're going to be great.
Thank you.
You already are.
Thank you for that reflection.
Hmm.
Thank you for that mantra. It's a coming down from self-importance and a remembering of partnership, being in this together and considering somebody else's needs and also not neglecting your own. So this balance of self-care and showing up for others. And hopefully, um, there's this recognition of I'm taking it slightly maybe away from the humanness and the vulnerability, but philosophically, there's this desire in yoga to see the other as the self, to recognize your divinity. It's namaste, means when I'm with the truth in me and see that truth within you, then we're the same. So, how can I see that sameness with, my stepchildren at times when they're hurtful or say things that are mean and I want to be reactive and closed down, but the ability to remember that we all have wounds and um, we're all a work in progress in our humanness, but at a deeper level, we all come from the same heart of love, and that would help me a lot too, is to be able to continue to remember that truth of unity, which is the we.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times too, which is a hard question, but has been helpful, is what are my kids here to teach me? Like, what are these kids teaching me right now in this moment? What are they showing me about myself? What are they showing me that I need to look at? What are they showing me that where my little self is being a little bit wounded, you know?
Sure. And is your ability to do that in the moment that you're
No, fuck
triggered?
no. No. No, no, no.
Yeah,
In the moment, that's just all nervous system regulation, right? I am like 0 to 10. I need to take myself out. I need to go touch some fucking grass. I need to like calm down and actually calm down. But I usually go calm down a little bit, then I go rage back in. So I
Sure.
have to really take myself out. But it's in the reflection of that. And it's in the quiet moments of that. And that's that higher perspective part, right? So I keep that and say, oh, right, my daughter's showing me feminine rage. What does that mean for me? What does that mean for her? This girl's going to be CEO. She's going to fucking run the world, okay?
There we go.
But in my household, there's fight for power. And at the same time, I see and honor her that she knows exactly what she wants and she fucking says it. And I never did that.
Amazing.
So there's those things that we can kind of keep holding and honoring as I'm asking them because they're mirroring back for me something, right? But it doesn't mean I'm not going to get triggered.
For sure. And you have the ability to reflect once, like, the water which was boiling comes
Yes.
to a simmer and then cools down a little bit. You can see clearly. Do you have a practice or a process of kind of reflecting back to your child who triggered you? Like how that made you feel when she did that thing, and also how you see that it's part of her quality that you appreciate. Like, do you have that dialogue with your children? Is it important for you, or is this more self work?
The what's important for kids, what I do is the repair. So I'm sorry I yelled.
Hmm.
I was angry because of blah 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 blah. Next time, or I am working on being more calm in the moment. So I'm taking ownership of things. I'm letting her know how I feel. But I don't go back and say, well, you did this that pissed me off. So I'm going to blah, blah. I might say that in the fight. I'm not great with words in the moment with that. But for her, I think that's where the thing with parenting is parenting such a long game. You know, you can't really change the behavior in the moment, but you want that. Right. But I'm showing her this is an emotion. This is how I dealt with it. I didn't like that. And I'm sorry. And I'm working on it.
It's very mature. It's a very excellent
I
process.
mean, not in the fight. This is
I'm
after.
I'm in my head thinking about what moments that I could go back and repair, um, in the way that I've related to my 3 stepchildren. And there was something recently that came up right after we got engaged. We were on our way to the airport, and the girls wanted to start talking about baby names. And it's important for them, because they really care about their reputation and what people think about them, especially the 13 and 15-year-old. So they want to be part of the naming process. And since they're Mexican, they want the name to have like a Mexican and English uh, kind of side to it. So I started telling them about all of my Hindu names that I liked, and I was just teasing them. I'm like, "Do you know Rafiki from The Lion King? I think Rafiki Sperry is pretty good." And they were getting upset. And one of the girls was like, "Well, if we don't have, uh, a part in naming the child, then he won't be our brother."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Ouch. Oh, to give birth to my firstborn child into a world where he's not accepted." And I just closed down. I was pretty much quiet for the next 5 hours. And that's how my father reacted to, like, being triggered. He would just shut down, and we couldn't reach him, and it was painful for us because we didn't think it was such a big deal. Like, why is dad so withdrawn? We can't get to him. So I see that tendency, and the girls, feel it, and they're like, "Mom, what's wrong with Pat? Is he angry at us? What did we say?" And I think I can repair that to say, like, when this happened, I felt, scared that my unborn child would be born into a culture where he wasn't accepted as part of the family dynamic. And my heart closed in that moment, and I went silent. And I'm sorry that I wasn't able to use my words better in the moment to express uh, my feelings.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful part about repair is it can happen anytime.
Thank you. I was gonna ask, is it too late? Have I waited too
No,
long? Is
no.
it better if it happens
Can you
sooner?
imagine if your fucking parents came to you today and said,
Wow.
"I'm sorry for all this shit," or this one thing? Can you imagine how powerful that would be?
Yes, and that's happening in my life right now. My father's coming to me as I go into really individuating my life and claiming, without asking permission for anything. He's starting to come to me with these moments in his life where he felt like he failed me, and they're very specific moments. I'm like, "Dad, how do you even remember that?" I mean, but it was a big moment, and he's taking responsibility for that, and it's it's powerful and kind of
Yes.
scary to even hear your parents go there, but it's a
Yeah.
gift. It's a
But what's
gift.
so interesting is, like, I'm wondering because I think about it as, again, frequency, like, you're doing this work and he's rising to the challenge of that and feeling that openness. So you're matching on some level, which is
Awesome.
insane. Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, what's happening within me is translating through my entire lineage, essentially, and probably even further back than we can imagine.
Yes.
Um, my father came with us for his 70th birthday to our pilgrimage in Peru. He always had a dream of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and I said,
Yeah.
"Dad, you're 70, we're going to Machu Picchu. It's a pretty high altitude hike. I mean, you're welcome to come." And he came, and he underwent 2 weeks of Flourish programming of shamanic ceremony and community building and spiritual practice, and he's changing. He's riding the waves of my leadership, and he's following me in some way now, which is a really interesting shift. It happened this year when I bought tickets to take him to the Rose Bowl when Michigan was playing Alabama, and I said, "Dad, are we going to the Rose Bowl?" He's the one who's always fronted the bill and brought me to these types of experiences, and he said, "Tickets are too expensive." I'm like, "We're going to the Rose Bowl?" And I spent $10,000 on 2 tickets to go to the Rose Bowl with my dad, and that shifted something where I kinda showed him that I valued sharing experiences with him, that I would pay for it, that I would plan for it, and that I wanted him to be part of my life, um, where he could follow my leadership in some way, and of course, he's still a leader in our family, but there's something shifting,
Yeah.
and it feels really, really cool.
And do you have brothers or sisters?
I have a younger sister,
Okay.
and she's having her firstborn in a few months, which is exciting, and I have an older brother, so I'm the middle
Okay.
child,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of the black sheep of the family.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, it's so interesting because you have, I believe the feminine leads the masculine in a lot of ways. And for you right now, you have four women that are leading you into this deeper part of yourself. And that's a lot. Like, it is a lot to hold and it is a lot to embody, and you are ready for it. And I'm so excited for you, really. And thank you for holding the mirror up to yourself, to be here now, to be at this point where you can lead other women and other men into the intimacy of themselves. And I'm so excited for you in your next chapter. And Pat, I feel like we're friends.
We are friends, Jen, and we're near neighbor, so
I know. Oh my gosh. I'm like, this is like a recorded coffee shop chat.
oh, it's been wonderful for me to relate with you. I do a lot of podcasts, and I'm often in conversations with men, and it's really easy. It's so easy to, you know, relate intellectually with men about men's work and men's development, and I mean, the softness which is coming through me, which you've recognized in our conversation, is because we're mirroring each other, and you have a deep feminine core, um, that is inviting me to kind of surrender and soften into mine. And it feels good. I think for me, what I'll take away from this conversation is this, kind of the courage to continue to surrender the ego and imagine the possibility of allowing these women, these influences, these energies to lead me into deeper parts of myself and to trust that the universe in this game is making no mistakes, that feedback, that reflection is valid. And if I can just stay open to hear um, the deeper meanings and, of course, allow myself to err along the way and be imperfect through the journey of parenting. Um, there's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah. Pat, I can keep chatting with you forever. Can you let people know where to find you and when the next retreat is or how we get in touch with that?
Sure. Thanks, Jen. There's two things through Flourish, and you can find more about Flourish at peaceloveflourish.com. Very
I
1960s
love it.
groovy domain. It was hard to find a Flourish website, and
Oh,
it's a popular word. So peaceloveflourish.com. And we just announced yesterday our 1 week immersion at Lake Atitlan, Guatemala, which is like this powerful energy vortex on Earth, a Mayan part of the world where we'll dive into indigenous practices and a really robust curriculum. This is our paradise module where we go to these idyllic places and we stay put and we practice 4 times a day. We'll do some day trips to the local markets and get out onto the lake, maybe a volcanic hike. And
fun.
that's May 24th to 31. That will be with Kat and Pat and our Flourish community. So check that one out. Really nourishing. We have Men's Retreat, which we've launched in Mammoth Lakes, California for 4 nights, a rites of passage weekend, um, where we connect in brotherhood and do really amazing processes to challenge ourselves to kind of activate these male archetypes and embody these qualities which, show the promise of what's possible as a mature masculine energy in the world. That's June 26th to 29. And there'll be more. We'll have pilgrimage this year, either in Thailand or Japan, but some of these dates are to be determined.
I love it.
Otherwise, patsperrylove.com. If you are interested in one-on-one well-being coaching or private yoga exchange, there's a lot of good stuff there too.
Awesome. And also Pat Sperry music on YouTube.
Oh,
Do not
you gotta
forget
check it out. Check out June or Love Comes Easy.
Love
Some of
Comes
my
Easy by
favorites. Yeah,
Pat Sperry.
let's go. Well, thank you, Jen.
Yeah,
It's wonderful to meet you,
you
and we'll have
too.
to get you down to a local Flourish event to lead
Yes.
us
I'm
through
very excited.
whatever it is
I
that
love
you
it
want to
all.
share.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Blessings to you on your journey with everything.
Thank you so much for listening to our show. A big, big heartfelt thank you to everybody that's listened, that's come back for season 3, or if you're new, welcome. We are so excited to have you here, and we'll see you next time.